Hello, I'm Kylie, and I am going over It's Not You by Dr. Ramani. And this book is excellent. I did just recently purchase this, and I totally recommend it. And you can purchase it online or in stores. I am not going to go through any detailed information regarding the book. It's something that you have to read and kind of get your own perspective from it. I know that it really helped me because, like Dr. Ramani mentions in the beginning of her book, that she struggled with dealing with narcissistic people throughout her life, and it kind of deferred her away from her cultural norms. And she had people that, kind of went separate ways with her, and she had to decide ultimately that, that was what's best, for her healing and her health and her life. So I am not done with the book yet. I do have a more detailed book review on my website. However, I'm just sharing a brief synopsis. I do want to add that whatever I mention on here is not um, mentioning any specific names. And it's only explaining my experience because with dealing with narcissistic people, it's not necessarily always the best to discuss those relationships with others because it's an ultimate experience that you really can't define, you can't really exemplify. You'll forever wonder the question of why. And the question now is, what do you do about it? What is acceptable and unacceptable to you in the dynamics of a relationship? And that's different for everyone. Some people have a high tolerance for bullshit, and some people have a very low one. I grew up in a narcissistic family. So for me, I had developed a very high tolerance for encounters with these kinds of people until I was reaching my breaking point, and now it is really to a non negotiable bullshit level. I can't tolerate that in my life. I have like a huge radar when it comes to that because I've done my work. I'm really intentional about not creating those environments around me. However, you can only control so much. So it's very important that you find that equilibrium within yourself, because if you go looking for it elsewhere, you're never going to find it. In chapters 1 through 4, and that's what I have done so far. She talks a lot about just the different types of narcissism, defining it, um, so that you have some more clarity when you think of that term. That's been a recent craze within the past couple of years, and I feel like it's only heightened with COVID. Death by a thousand cuts. So actually being in the relationship with a narcissist, the fallout. So there's a huge impact of narcissistic abuse. And you have to be able to understand your backstory. And a lot of times, that's why I say, as clinicians, it's not really that effective as I have been practicing to try to do a backstory for others when it comes to narcissistic relationships, because sometimes the people that I come in contact with, they're dealing with, abuse, they're dealing with health challenges, they're dealing with, economical challenges. So it's very important. Um, to not really go through that, because sometimes, they're just trying to keep themselves safe. And sometimes the advice of others or recommendations doesn't necessarily provide them with the answers that they need. And that ultimately takes time. And I always say this, not everyone has time. And it would literally take taking yourself out of your body, having an outer body experience, and putting yourself into that person's life. And who wants to trade places with someone indefinitely? I don't. So I had to take action and do things my way that was conducive to me being able to propel forward. So, um, a narcissism it's a very broad term to use. There is a myth that is mainly men. However, we all have come in contact, whether it's in our family, um, peers, associates, partners, whatever, that are narcissistic, and that comes in any gender. And I just feel like with social media and a lot of things being online, the ability to become so fixated on terms is very debilitating. So a lot of times there's not a lot of taking action, it's just a lot of internalization and really becoming like self-absorbed. And that is something that I've had to evaluate with dealing with some of these people. And oftentimes you have to reflect upon yourself. So it's like, that's totally what was going on there. Um, they have a need for controlling the narrative of basically anything that happens in their life. So, you could be having a conversation with them and they're totally elsewhere. So it's never like they're in the present moment. They're always elsewhere. And they do a lot of shifting masks. So dealing with a narcissist, they wear multiple different faces. So it just depends. So that's why I said it's very difficult to hone in on what the tick is for a narcissist, what is going to make them explode. And you never want to provoke a narcissist. So that's why it's very important. I talk about ecology and the ecosystem and the narcissistic supply that she mentions in the book. It is very a real scenario. So basically for me, I have been in a relationship, several, and often, wondering like, what's wrong? Is it me? I have my list of things that are important to me. I have a list of things that aren't important. I would go over that with the other person. I'm a very open person in communication. However, I could see that shift, and I would say for them, it was when they didn't have access to a lot of people, or when they didn't have access to a lot of like clamgloriant things, like huge grandiose things. They weren't into that. So they weren't into more of a foundational, consistent life, and they were looking for everything else in everyone else besides truly looking at themselves. So oftentimes, needing to always like run around for other people, needing to, we're adults needing to take, people to different like locations and things like that. So ultimately, it was they needed to always have access to people, men or women. So that was a way of knowing that I could try to change everything about myself. If they weren't able to have access to those people or get their, supply off of others, then there was no demand for, what I was offering for our relationship. And that's okay because, you have to be able to know when those things are beginning to harm you in your trajectory of your life. And that's huge. You never want to call them out. So make sure that, you're observant of these things. It's nothing like an argument or anything. When you're to the point where you want to like give a person a definition of being a narcissist, you're going to want to have done your true observations yourself. So that's why that's extremely, extremely important.